Good morning, Canada. Welcome back to another episode of Question Period. Today is December 9th, 2025. And today's a big day, a massive day, because the Conservatives are putting forward a motion for a pipeline to go from Alberta to the Pacific. Now, the TLDR, since this is a live stream, nothing has actually happened just yet, but spoiler alert, I can pretty much guarantee you that the Liberals and the NDP are going to shut it down. So even though we're going through the motion of the Conservatives saying, hey, we agree there should be a pipeline, you should do it this way, I can pretty much guarantee you the Liberals are gonna be like, no, even if that's exactly how we're gonna do it, we're not gonna give you guys credit because, hey, that's politics and that's the name of the game. It shouldn't be, but that's what it is right now. So yeah, that's what we have to look forward to today. There's also some other interesting news clips that we're going to be taking a look at, such as Andrew Scheer going on CBC one-on-one with the bald guy to talk about the pipeline. You also have Vashi doing a CTV panel to discuss America, Trump, and tariffs and how Canada's getting the shit end of the stick. So there are some things for us to stay entertained with before question period actually takes place. But just know that if you're expecting Pierre Poilievre's motion for the pipeline, the Conservatives' motion for the pipeline to go through, I wouldn't hold your breath. I wouldn't hold your breath. That's not because it's bad. I'm sure it's phenomenal, but it's politics. The Liberals have power. They've got all these coalitions, and yeah, it's just unfortunately how it goes. So keep that in mind today. Don't get too emotionally attached to what the Conservatives are trying to do, because it'll very likely be denied. But all that being said, all I ask in return is for you guys to hit the like button on the stream. It's absolutely free to do so, and subscribe to the channel. It's also absolutely free to do so. And then we can get on with taking a look at what's going on with the news before question period begins. Starting off with this clip.
You're saying that the Conservatives are trying to divide you on this issue. Is it not your government that has divided your own caucus by bringing forward an MOU that clearly does not have the full support of your own party?
As a party, we are united in wanting to make sure that we continue to build Canada, that we build it well, that we take into account climate change in the work that we do, and that we respect Indigenous rights holders. Our party is united on that. And so I won't accept that as a premise for that question. We are united.
You is dividing your own caucus. You don't think there's divisions over that?
No.
People can have issues with particular pieces, but we are supportive of the entire MOU.
You are supportive, but there are many of your other caucus members who are not supportive.
The caucus is supportive of the entire MOU. People, yes.
Would you have wanted to vote in favor of the pipeline? Was this a whip vote for your caucus?
This was not a whipped vote for me. This is a very easy decision to vote no on. It is designed to divide.
Oh, wow. So, okay, so there's some division within the Liberals. That's good to see. That's good to see. Seems like some of them are finally growing a spine and standing up to Mr. Carnage on what they think is right or what they think is wrong. That's going to be fun. Huh? I like to see the Liberals fracture a little bit. I think they deserve it. But now we're going to shift away from that, and we're actually going to take a look at Pierre Poilievre's speech. Because Pierre Poilievre, just moments ago, 20 minutes ago, he and some of the Conservatives, well, the entire Conservative Party, went in the House and proposed their pipeline amendments, okay? Their pipeline motion. So we're going to take a look now at what Pierre Poilievre said about the pipeline this morning. Let's have a look.
We in the Conservative caucus are united. We believe that Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific, and that we need to override the discriminatory anti-Canada ban on shipping Canadian energy overseas. We need this pipeline because it will make for stronger take-home pay, it will make for affordable living, and it will make for a sovereign, self-reliant economy.
So this is actually quite interesting because it's the first time in a very long time that the Conservatives and the Liberals both agree that a pipeline should be built. Now, yeah, sure, there's some Liberals that don't agree with it, Stephen Guilbeault and a couple other Liberals, but right now you're actually seeing the same thing being proposed just from two different parties. And there's definitely arguments to be made on which one is actually better. And if it's talking about oil and gas and a pro pipeline, then without a doubt, it's always going to be conservatives are proposing something better than the Liberals, without a doubt. But it is interesting that both parties, both major parties, are pushing for a pipeline right now. That is actually quite good for the country.
Talk for a moment about the incredible benefits that such a pipeline would bring. It would allow us to move $30 billion a year of Canadian energy overseas to the 2.5 billion Asian customers that would then pay world prices for it. $30 billion would be the single biggest increase in overseas exports that any decision by this country could make. To put this into perspective, recently I pointed out that the Prime Minister, after running on the promise that we were in an existential crisis and needed to do the unimaginable at speeds not seen in generations, had not succeeded in removing a single foreign tariff on Canadian exports despite countless months of world travel. He snapped back that there's been a trade deal with Indonesia. Well, forget the fact that it was the previous Prime Minister that negotiated that, something the current one has a bad habit of doing, is taking credit for things he did not do. But by the government's own projections, if that trade deal were to be as good as they promised, it would add $400 million to our exports. The pipeline to the Pacific would add 75 times more to Canada's exports overseas than the only agreement that the Prime Minister likes to brag about. So there is literally not a single trade deal you could sign, not a single government project you could fund that would come anywhere close to opening up the $30 billion of overseas non-U.S. exports that this single project would enable. It would mean thousands of extra jobs for Canadians in Western Canada, but also potentially in Central Canada, who might be the ones supplying the steel for this patriotic pipeline. It would mean the communities on the route would have new life as workers would be filling restaurants with their paychecks. Local vendors would be able to sell more clothing, more housing supplies, and other goods to enable and rejuvenate communities all across the north part of Alberta and British Columbia, originating as it would be from Hardisty, Alberta, in my wonderful riding. The best people in the world would therefore benefit from this incredible project. And I add, Madam Speaker, that it not only would it give paychecks, it would bring tax revenues that would allow us to fund more schools, hospitals, better policing, and increase social services, not through higher taxes, as the Liberals so often favor, but rather through a booming economy. Furthermore, when you export more Canadian goods abroad, you force other countries to buy Canadian dollars. That raises the dollar and therefore the purchasing power of our people. The cost of goods that are internationally priced become more affordable. More affordable food, fuel, and inputs to build housing. A stronger dollar means in a more affordable Canada, and that is our ultimate purpose. The biggest problem in Canada today is people cannot afford to live after Liberals doubled housing costs, doubled the cost at the grocery store, doubled lineups at food banks, and doubled our national debt. One way to make life more affordable is to have a strong Canadian dollar that buys more food, fuel, and housing. All of these incredible benefits would be a no-brainer, and we shouldn't even have to debate it. In fact, Madam Speaker, we wouldn't have to debate it if the previous Conservative government's decision to approve the Northern Gateway pipeline to the Pacific had been allowed to go ahead. But in a November of 2016 cabinet decision, this Liberal government killed the Northern Gateway pipeline. The current Prime Minister, who was not in the cabinet at the time, went on to testify at the Industry Committee that he agreed with killing the Northern Gateway pipeline. The current government continues to have a tanker ban that blocks shipping Canadian oil off the northwest coast of BC while allowing American tankers to move oil between Alaska and the U.S. West Coast. So apparently it's safe when the Americans transport oil through those same waters, but not when Canadians do it.
This is the problem. The Liberals, they literally cause all of these problems and then they offer to sell the solution. It's so annoying. We don't have a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific because of Liberals, a tanker ban because of Liberals, a cap on how much we can actually move for oil and gas, like barrels of oil per day, because of the Liberals. And now all of a sudden they've had this eureka moment where they're like, you know what? Maybe we just like hijack some of the conservative talking points and fix some of the things that we've fucked up. It's wrong. It's wrong to do that. It's so wrong.
Clearly an act by this government of economic self-harm, of discriminating against Canadians. Now, the Prime Minister suddenly claimed that he'd reversed himself. He signed an MOU. Now, to believe that he is actually committed to the MOU, you have to believe that he now says he was wrong about everything he wrote and that the Liberal government did in the preceding 10 years. That he was wrong about the emissions cap, wrong about the electricity regulations, wrong about shipping oil through a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, and wrong about the tanker ban. And he was wrong about all of those things, but you'd have to believe that he has accepted that wrong. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him a chance to come in the House of Commons and vote in favor of what he promised. So Conservatives brought forward a good faith motion just to make sure that Liberals meant what they said, to get them all in the House of Commons to vote on whether they want a pipeline to the Pacific and whether they're prepared to open up our waters to shipping energy overseas. Now, the Liberals went dead quiet. I expected them to enthusiastically applaud this gesture of goodwill. They went dead quiet over the weekend, telling reporters on background they had no idea how they were going to vote on their own MOU proposal for a pipeline and an adjustment to the oil tanker moratorium. I even used wording right out of the Prime Minister's MOU to make it easy for him. But it still wasn't easy enough. As we know with Liberals, they often start by making promises and then they go to making excuses. So they've now been generating a whole lot of excuses about why they have to vote against the wording in their own MOU. Let's go through some of the excuses. That it didn't mention that they want to accompany the pipeline with a carbon capture project. They claimed that it didn't go far enough in spelling out Indigenous engagement and ownership. They claimed that it didn't clearly lay out the plan to engage with British Columbia. Now, forget for a second the obvious fact that if the Liberals are telling the truth when they say they support the whole MOU, then they should be prepared to vote for any part of the MOU. After all, it's their MOU. So that obvious contradiction aside, we know the Liberals have made these excuses. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm going to help brush away those excuses for them. We're going to amend our own motion in order to include the things that Liberals claim we left out. So we are going to amend the motion in favor so that it will support green lighting, carbon capture and storage, green lighting Indigenous ownership in the project, and engaging with British Columbia. And we are going to, in the spirit of good faith, if we are removing all the Liberal excuses, because we know what the Prime Minister's plan is. He wants to pretend that he supports a pipeline like the majority of Canadians just long enough to get through the next election, while he quietly whispers to his Keep It in the Ground caucus, it will never happen, don't worry, just hang tight with me and be quiet, we'll kill it after the election. Now, to make sure that he can't play that duplicitous game we're going to give him this amendment. And I move the following amendment, Madam Speaker, that the motion be amended by inserting the word including the word, that the motion be amended by inserting after the word including the word I, and by adding after the words Indigenous people the following. 2, green-lighting the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage, CCUS project for the purpose of making Alberta oil among the lowest carbon intensity produced barrels of oil in the world. 3, providing meaningful opportunity for Indigenous rights holders to participate in consultation processes and economic opportunities through Indigenous ownership, partnerships, and benefits. 4, engaging with British Columbia immediately in a trilateral discussion on the pipeline project and during the potential development and construction of the bitumen pipeline referred to in the MOU, and to further the economic interests of BC related to their own projects of interest that involve the province of Alberta, including the interties and Canada working with BC, and with Canada working with BC on other projects of national interest in their jurisdiction. Madam Speaker, this amendment is so moved, and it is seconded by the member for Regina Capel. Thank you.
Wow. There you go, man. That's pretty awesome. So it seems like the Conservatives are really putting the Liberals in a bit of a checkmate position, and we're just going to have to wait and see how this kind of unravels itself today as they go and they vote on this motion. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this. Do you support Pierre Poilievre's motion? Do you support the Conservatives' motion? Are you all in on the Conservatives right now? Or more importantly, do you support a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific? Let me know what you guys think. Now we're going to shift away from that, and we're going to take a look at this recent panel that CTV Vash Kapelos did, talking about Trump's most recent comments about trade with Canada, negotiations, and how all this is going. Let's have a look.
45-minute meeting after the telegraphing ahead of it was, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be very brief. The three of them in a room with no staff. Nothing really out of that meeting tangible like that we're talking about today. What do you make of it all?
Well, what's one to make of it? Like, I don't know. What would I say? Donald Trump, has got 1,000 problems right now, and Canada ain't one of them. Since Gallup started doing presidential polling, he's hit, I think, a new low for any U.S. president at this point in their administration at 36% support. I think he is in a very weakened position. Almost across the board. The off-cycle elections did not go well for the Republican Party, largely because of the president and his agenda, and one of the most unpopular portions of that being the tariffs. I think he's facing a high prospect of a Supreme Court striking down a number of his tariff measures, which I think would be yet another devastating blow for his administration. And you're seeing him having to do his taco. Trump always chickens out on another whole range of tariffs because of the unpopularity of rising domestic prices on foodstuffs. And now he's talking about tariffing fertilizer, Canadian fertilizer, much of which, unless they're going to discover potash where they haven't yet in the United States, is coming from the blessed land of Saskatchewan. I don't see an alternative for them. So what does that do? It raises food prices even more. Trump is in a lot of trouble. He's in a lot of trouble on a lot of issues. And I think the best thing that Carney and the Canadian negotiating team can do is be very busy doing other things, like getting trade deals with other people around the world, and allow political gravity to bring the president down to something more approaching planet Earth.
Do you think we can count on that political?
Of course, it's Canadian media talking about how big of trouble President Trump really is in. I don't think they feel the same way in America. But yeah, it's always funny that Canada tries to dunk on the president whenever they get the opportunity.
Gravity, though, Brian, and I think Corey lays it out very well, right? Like it is all pulling in a downward direction, but at times that hasn't mattered to Trump.
You're absolutely right to say that, and I think we have seen Trump deny what are sort of the adages of politics and just basically go against the grain of what we're all used to, and somehow be somewhat successful, at least winning 2 elections in doing so. So look, I think Corey's laying out of the land of where things stand is accurate, and I certainly hope that's the case. And a weakened position with him would, I think, bolster our chances of having a deal for Canada that would work well for our economy. But look, as you kind of are hinting at in your question, Vash, I mean, he has sort of defied the odds. He has sort of gone against the grain on almost anything and everything that we've ever thought would stop him or at least nick him, and it never seems to. And whether it's because he is able to do things a different way that we're not used to, or whether it's because he just doesn't care and he just keeps moving forward and plows forward, and then there's consequences for others. I don't know. But arguably, it's all, maybe coming to a bit of a halt, or at least a slowdown based on the terrain that Corey laid out, but also because we would, in historic times, see a bit of a lame duck president fairly soon. But again, I mean, it goes back to your question. He's bucked the trend so many times. I don't think we can count on that. But nevertheless, I think that the idea that he still says he likes the prime minister, we'll see. Is certainly, it's no certainty there, but I think we've all seen the president talk about Canada and talk about other countries in a much more bombastic way. So I guess relatively speaking, that's not bad. So as Corey pointed out, maybe he just has other fishes to fry at the moment, and it's just we're not top of mind, which maybe isn't a bad thing.
Well, and sort of that lends itself to, I think, what's emerging as a more clear picture of what will happen, let's say, from the domestic perspective, Tom, which is, there's nobody rushing to make some sort of big deal with the U.S. president, but that means that those sectoral tariffs remain in place, and then they'll have to focus on what they do, like last week in the case of Algoma, how they keep those sectors afloat, if in fact that is the objective. For how long is that arrangement politically palatable?
I think that it's really starting to hit home with the average American that tariffs are hurting the average American.
I don't think
Donald
so.
Trump is a really good salesman, and
I don't think that's the case at all, or else you would hear a bunch of Trump supporters going, hey, we don't like this. This is absolutely ridiculous. When Trump has said that, they're going to be abolishing parts of income tax or getting rid of all of the income tax for people that make, under a certain amount of income, I really don't think that the tariffs matter a whole lot. In fact, most of the country in America seems to be united under the fact that other countries around the world have been ripping off the United States, and now they're getting tariffed.
he's like a carny barker. He's got, a cure for everything, and you've got to listen to him, and he keeps explaining, and sometimes it works. But
a cure for everything, bro. This guy doesn't realize the hypocrisy. That's literally the liberals. The liberals have a cure for everything. They cause the problems, and they have the cure and the solution for all the shit that they've caused. Tom Mulcair is a liberal shill. He's got blinders on, and he's clearly got Trump derangement syndrome.
It's not Canadian companies. It's not Canadian governments that are paying the tariffs that will be imposed on potash. It's American consumers, because farmers use potash as part of their fertilizers on every single acre of field producing food in the U.S. So it might be a bit hard for somebody to understand that the reason their pickup truck is now costing thousands of dollars more is because steel is being tariffed, and as it comes into the States, it goes into those products like pickup trucks and cars, and they are paying for it. And Trump needed that money so he could give tax breaks to the richest Americans. That's complicated. Food is not complicated. If somebody explains to you that because Trump, and we've got to hold on to that clip forever, Trump's sitting there promising, we can produce more fertilizer. I love that. Never lose that one. But that's exactly what he does all the time. And here, the average American can say, hold on, if the Canadians had decided to put an export tax on potash, we would have been railing, saying it's going to raise the price of food in the United States. But somehow Trump believes that he's going to be able to con people into understanding that it's okay to tariff, it's turned into a verb, to tariff potash that goes into the American foods production system, and that American consumers are going to be paying for. It's madness, but it exposes Trump much more than the more arcane world of metal productions and such. This everybody gets, Vashti, simply because they go to the supermarket and they knew.
So it's really funny and ironic that Tom Mulcair is saying tariffs don't even affect Canadians. Like the tariffs that America puts on Canadians, it doesn't even affect us. It's the Americans that are paying for it. This doesn't make any sense. Blah, 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 blah. And then on the other hand, you have our liberal members of parliament that are crying, that are saying live every day, Trump's illegal tariffs against Canada. They're affecting our job sectors. They're affecting our markets. Tariffs are absolutely affecting Canadians. Absolutely, without a doubt. So Tom Mulcair's spewing a bunch of nonsense saying, I don't understand why he would do that to Americans. But we've lost hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada because of it, because plants are shutting down, mills are shutting down. They can't afford the extra cost anymore. It's getting ridiculous. It's getting bonkers. So you have two sides, like liberal shill and actual liberals, and they're both saying opposites, and they're trying to cover the entire playing field. It's weird, it's bizarre, it's manipulative. What you need is somebody who can actually negotiate proper trade with America and get a good deal. That's what you need. Somebody who's not willing to stick it to Trump and remove all the American alcohol and spritzers off the shelves and try to boycott different American products or even America itself. Don't go to America, folks. Travel to fucking Winnipeg in the winter. Yeah, don't go to Florida. Go to Saskatchewan in the winter. Come on, man. This is ridiculous.
No, their food's costing more because of Donald Trump.
Benzie, what do you think?
No, Tom and Corey and Brian are exactly right, Vashti. I mean, Donald Trump had to give a $12 billion bailout to American farmers because of his tariff policy today. So I don't understand how when they get 80% of the potash that they use, 80% of the fertilizer they use comes from raw materials from Saskatchewan, Corey's home province. It is so bizarre to me that they think they can invent a solution. I mean, I think part of the problem is that it's not exactly like the president is surrounded by a top-notch crew of really crackerjack advisors. He's surrounded by grifters, sycophants, second-raters. These are not people. Wow. He's not even surrounded with anyone who was in his first administration, which is, if you think about that, that's astounding. So he's not getting good advice. Not that he would take it if he did, I guess. I think we should do what our friend David Frum recommended and just buy.
This guy's right. He must be right. The president of the United States, one of the most successful businessmen that's come out of America, once a national icon before he ever entered politics. The most powerful leader in the entire world is an idiot, apparently, and is surrounded by bad advice, says this gay little nerd from Canada on a CTV panel who we don't even know his name. He's wearing a pink and white checkered plaid shirt under his suit. But yeah, you're right. You must have the answers that the president of the fucking United States of America doesn't, right? You on a random CTV panel, probably doing it for free. You're probably not even getting paid for this, and we still don't even know your fucking name. You probably have all the answers that the president of the United States doesn't have. You're right. Yeah, no, Trump must be wrong. You, a nobody, must be right.
At our time, keep and negotiate with Donald Trump next year when he's in an even weaker position because, as Brian said, he is a lame duck. The midterms next year will be a bloodbath. It's even if the Democrats continue to shoot themselves in the foot on certain issues, it doesn't matter. The hatred of Donald Trump, as Corey pointed out, he's underwater in the polls, and it will just mount as. They're suppressing the release of data about prices and employment. What does that tell you? That tells you that he doesn't want people to know how bad it is, even though all they have to do is go into their neighborhood Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo and see how bad it is.
I just have 30 seconds left. Craig, I just wanted to swing back. The question I had earlier was like, how politically palatable is that, though? For how long? Like, we're holding out while these sectors still retain all this damage. Like, you're in Ontario. The premier is, like, vocal there about the auto sector. Like, how long does that last?
Spin up another ad. That's what I say. Look, I think it's palatable. I think, people, I think, want to see this work out well for Canada. And I think we're looking at a potential with some of these tariffs being overturned by the Supreme Court. The worst thing Canada could do was agree to some kind of deal where those are imposed upon ourselves through a voluntary agreement for a prolonged period of time in order to get through the next 6 or 8 months. I just don't think that makes any sense. Trump is in trouble right now. I think we should just let him be in trouble. It's kind of a version of what we were talking about with a good strategy for the Conservatives. Time, give them more rope, give them more line, whatever analogy you want, and bide our time on this, because it looks like things are trending in a positive direction. It'd be a mistake to go to the table now.
All right. Well, thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Our wonderful front bench, Brian.
Yeah, you're right. The president of the United States is doing it wrong. And these random panelists on CTV, whom we don't even know their name, they have the answers that Trump is looking for. It's so funny to see Canadian media pretend to know so much about America, yet consistently get surprised on what actual Americans really want and what actual Americans continue to elect and support. It's absolutely funny, but I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. Okay, we got a little bit of time. We're going to take a look now at CBC. The bald guy from CBC sits down with Andrew Scheer to talk about the motion on the pipeline for the Conservatives. Let's have a look.
Liberal members on one side of the country are saying they're against, while they're pretending in Alberta that they are in favor. So why don't they stand up in the House of Commons, look Canadians in the eye, take one position, vote for a pipe to the Pacific?
The Prime Minister and all of us and all Conservative premiers and most people in this country supports every part of that MOU.
Andrew Scheer is the Conservative House Leader, and he joins me now. Mr. Scheer, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks very much for having me.
What do you hope to gain from getting the government to vote on this tomorrow? What does it do to advance the push for a pipeline?
Well, I believe Canadians deserve clarity. We've got Mark Carney that goes out and dangles the possibility of a pipeline in Alberta, and then immediately comes back and starts to talk down expectations. He says these are necessary but not sufficient to get it built. There's all kinds of Liberal MPs saying that they won't support it. If we ever got to the point of things like looking at the moratorium on tanker traffic, that would require some kind of change of legislation. So I think Canadians deserve to know exactly where this government stands. Mark Carney has made a practice now of saying one thing to one group of people. When he's in Alberta, he'll say positive things about it, but when he goes to other places, he says things like, well, the Premier of British Columbia gets a veto, and necessary but not sufficient, and all kinds of confusing language. So tomorrow's an opportunity for Liberals to just clearly state, do they support a pipeline to the Pacific so we can export more Canadian oil and gas overseas, yes or no?
But, well, I don't. The Prime Minister has not used the word veto. He did say in question period, BC government would need to approve. So that opens up.
What happens if they don't?
No, I just want to quote him accurately. But these are not sufficient conditions yet for a pipeline, right? There's no proponent, there's been no consultation, there's no route, there's no Indigenous support. I mean, there is this MOU, but it is not at the sufficient stage, right?
Well, first of all, Mark Carney is becoming famous for this kind of Liberal wordplay where he says, oh, it's not a veto, but an approval is required. Well, we all know what happens when somebody is, when somebody says, well, somebody has to agree for it to proceed, well, then withholding that agreement is in effect a veto. He has not ever said that even if the British Columbia government oppose it, that he would approve it anyway. Secondly, to your point, first of all, there are, on the previous Northern Gateway project, I think it's important to kind of take a step back and say, how did we get here?
Sure.
On the previous Northern Gateway project, which would have opened up Asian markets to Canadian energy, there were lots of First Nations communities who would benefit and sign on to partnership agreements.
Most First Nations actually really like oil and gas and pipelines. It creates jobs, it creates wealth in the communities, it gives people something to do. There's only like a few corrupt chiefs across Canada that start blocking this shit. And I don't know what the strategy is for the Liberals to navigate these waters, but I can tell you that the Liberals are probably going to be taken advantage of. if there actually comes to an agreement. But right now, in this MOU, there is no real, it's all just fluff. There is no real like meat and potatoes to any of this, because there are so many people that can veto this. There are so many different indigenous groups, there are so many different communities that can actually just say, you know what, no, we don't agree to this. And that's a problem when you're branding Canada right now, this time in history, as we are in a trade war. It's devastating and we need to unite together. And you're seeing parties, I mean, the Conservatives want a pipeline. And the fucking Liberals are saying they want a pipeline. Whether they actually go through with it or not, they're saying they want a pipeline. So you've got a lot of people that are actually on board, who from political opposites, that are on board with the pipeline right now. Seemingly so, except one group that gets to veto everything. Indigenous.
What Mark Carney is saying when he says that these conditions are necessary but not sufficient, you're right. There's lots of things in the MOU that haven't happened yet. But what Mark Carney is saying, that even if all these things happen, it still might not proceed. So that's why there's just so much confusion around here. There's no confusion from other political parties. Don Davies and the NDP, very clear. They do not support a pipeline. The Conservatives, very clear. We want a pipeline built to put men and women in the energy sector back to work and get off of U.S. dependence in terms of a market. The Liberals, all over the map, very confusing. We just believe Canadians deserve clarity.
So why would Mark Carney spend political capital and time to sign a deal with Daniel Smith, who has not been a fan of Liberal governments, as you're well aware? He had a high-profile resignation from Cabinet and former Minister Guilbeault, which is going to hurt him in parts of Quebec. The pipeline itself is an unpopular notion in the lower mainland of British Columbia, which could cost some seats to the New Democrats. And members of his Net Zero Advisory Committee have been resigning in protest of the rollback of environmental policy that's in this. Why would he do all of those things and take all of those hits if he wasn't serious about trying to get a pipeline to the Pacific coast?
Well, I believe that he understands that Canadians want to see some progress on this. Canadians overwhelmingly support exporting more of our oil and gas. Canadians definitely want to diversify our trading markets, but he doesn't believe in it himself. Remember, he wrote a book called Values, where he described himself on a very integral level, and he talked about his love of carbon taxes, his belief that we need to leave our natural resources in the ground. I mean, he talked about making people go through great hardship in the next few years. So I believe it's a case that, look, he can read the polls, he can see where the Canadian people are at, but he doesn't actually want to do it because he doesn't believe in it. So he's trying to do half measures. Now,
it's a lot of capital and effort to waste on something you don't want.
If I'm wrong, he could show up tomorrow and he can vote in favor of our motion and clearly say, I support a pipeline.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to play a clip. This is from Calgary Liberal MP Corey Hogan, who said that today that a yes or a no vote actually potentially makes the pipeline less likely because of the implications of it. Just have a listen to what Mr. Hogan had to say.
This is a motion that's designed to provoke and to divide, and the Leader of the Opposition doesn't seem to care that the motion actually makes less likely the thing he says he wants, which is a pipeline. If it's a yes vote, it might look like we don't take seriously our requirement to consult with BC and First Nations, and if it's a no vote, it might look like we're not serious about the pipelines.
I mean, is that not the net effect?
Yeah, political checkmate, bitch. That's what it's about. The Liberals have been stealing the Conservatives' ideas and platforms. I don't see you talking about that. The Liberals have been playing this scummy game of politics for years, and now the Conservatives finally have them kind of pinned in a corner. Yeah, welcome to politics. The Conservatives are finally actually growing a pair and saying, you know what? We're just going to show the country how stupid the Liberals really are and how full of shit the Liberals really are. There you go. That's politics. You want to play politics, Liberals? You don't get to politic and then watch the Conservatives be truthful and honest and just get their asses handed to them. Finally, it's not that they're deceiving anybody. They are being truthful and honest, but they're beating the Liberals to the punch right now by putting forward this motion. So yeah, good job, Conservatives. I actually think that this is a really good example to show the country, are the Liberals really united, or is this just Fugazi?
Of what this motion does?
If the motion has that effect, then what effect does the MOU have?
Well, but the MOU has a language about, you've pulled out one specific section of the MOU, like the part about, consulting and engaging with First Nations, consulting and engaging with the government of British Columbia. You mentioned Northern Gateway. I mean, that was approved in 2014, but overturned by the federal court in 2016 due to a failure to consult with Indigenous groups after the report approving it with the 209 conditions was released, right? The concern there is that if you vote yes now, it looks like you're short-circuiting the consultation process.
First of all, on Northern Gateway, it was sent back to Cabinet with gaps identified. It was a political decision by the Liberal government to veto Northern Gateway, and Mark Carney said he supported that. So
right, but the legal precedent of it being overturned.
There were options available to the government to fill in those gaps. The Liberals made a political decision not to proceed and to kill the project, and Mark Carney said he supported that. If our motion does what that Liberal MP said,
Corey Hogan,
then what does the MOU do? The MOU is signed by the Prime Minister, signed by the government of Alberta. So,
but there's more to the MOU than is in your motion.
Yes, but I just think on that level alone, that remark was ridiculous. What we're saying in this motion is the essence of this. The reason why Mark Carney went to Alberta to sign this MOU was not to build other things. It wasn't built. He didn't sign an MOU to get a ring road built around Calgary or to make some other infrastructure announcement. It was an MOU to get a pipeline built. So what we're just asking Liberal MPs is to clearly state, do you support that in principle? Nothing in our motion contradicts any other part of the MOU. We lifted it right from the MOU, including the language on consultations for Indigenous Canadians. That is the essence of the MOU. That is why everybody got together to sign it. If Liberals can't even bring themselves to vote yes on that, what kind of a message does that send Canadians?
Right, but you can appreciate the delicate politics of trying to do this with the opposition of the government of British Columbia, the opposition of the coastal First Nations as a group representing a lot of the nations there in BC. I mean, they're coming here tomorrow for this debate because they feel Minister Hodgson wasn't clear enough in meeting with them, and now you've suggested it's ridiculous, the concerns that it would look like you're short-circuiting the need for Indigenous consultation. I mean, I appreciate the politics you're doing here, but
no. Just because a Liberal MP says it doesn't make it true. The idea that having a vote on an MOU that the Prime Minister himself signed, the essence of which was to get a pipeline built, in any way undermines the ability to proceed. It's just laughable, just on face value. It's the Liberals that were being criticized for not doing proper consultations in advance of the MOU. So that's a problem that they have to explain.
No, I know, and I went through that with Minister Hodgson last week.
I think it's absolutely fair, after weeks of mixed messages and outright contradictions from the government, to bring the essence of the MOU. The point of the MOU was to get a pipeline built. Put that before all MPs so everybody can clearly state where they are. And as I said, all the other political parties are very clear on where they stand, and Canadians can judge them in the next election on their position. As of today, I can't tell you what the unified message of the Liberal Party is, because their MPs are all over the map.
But maybe there isn't a unified message of the Liberal Party is what I wonder, because
I think that's for Canadians to know too.
Sure, well, I think Minister Guilbeault's resignation made that kind of clear, and what we've heard from some of the BC MPs, I think makes that kind of clear. I think the cabinet, though, is Eleanor Olszewski was here, the cabinet minister from Alberta, and I asked her directly, is this a government that is now fully committed to the idea of getting a pipeline? She said yes. So, I mean, I appreciate what's in the Prime Minister's book, and things are obviously very different, right now. But since the signing of the agreement with Daniel Smith, beyond highlighting the conditionality of the MOU, that it requires a proponent, it requires consultation and a route and these things, what is it that is unclear from the cabinet's perspective?
Well, because even what you just said, there are conditions in the MOU.
Yeah.
No one denies that. What Mark Carney said is that the conditions in the MOU are necessary but not sufficient. What that means, if you actually just look at the meaning of the words themselves, that even if the government of Alberta does all of this, Mark Carney's still giving himself an out.
Do you see it that way, or do you mean that it's not sufficient until the government of Alberta does these other things? That's how I interpreted it, and getting the other partners potentially on board, or at least going through the consultation.
That's not what the words mean. I mean, if you want to sell me your house, and I say, okay, but on condition that you put a new coat of paint on the exterior and change the landscape, and you say, okay, so if I do that, you'll buy the house? And I say, well, maybe not. If you don't do it, I definitely won't buy the house, but if you do it might not be enough.
Yeah, but that's a one-to-one transaction. This is a lot more complicated, right? So look, as a final point, representatives from the coastal First Nations, the umbrella organization, and some of the nations that comprise it, they're going to be here tomorrow. Do the Conservatives plan to meet with them to find out their views on this? Because, they obviously are a key player in all of this, as the preferred route, if the Northern Gateway route is resurrected, is right through their territory.
I'd be happy to meet with them. I would point out that if there's a failure to get buy-in at this stage around the MOU from Indigenous communities, everything I've read is that failure lies with the federal government for not doing that. I meet with First Nations community all the time who recognize that the path for prosperity for First Nations community is in natural resource and extraction. And for decades, we've extracted Canadian natural resources and energy out of the ground to the benefit of First Nations community, to the benefit of all Canadians, to the benefit of everybody who uses a hospital or drives on a paved road. These are good things for Canada at a time when we need to be diversifying our trade off of U.S. markets. And so our vote tomorrow is to basically show Canadians that where every party stands. A Conservative government would offer the people of Alberta, the people of Saskatchewan, the men and women who want to work in the energy sector, Atlantic Canadians in Newfoundland, who see these natural resource extractions as a way to lift up the quality of life for their people. Our message is we're not going to create hoops and hurdles and special rules and special exemptions. I mean, think about the kind of economy that Mark Carney is building here. He's not setting level playing fields where all projects are treated equally, all companies are treated equally, all workers are treated equally. He's giving him the selective power of enforcement. That's a very, very dangerous road to.
Well, that's what C5 was, and you guys voted for C5, right? Because it allows for these limited exemptions for national laws. I mean, this is a piece of legislation that passed with Conservative votes.
Look, our preference, our strong preference, is to remove the liberal legislation that now even Liberals admit unnecessarily blocked big projects. They have admitted that with the need for C5 and with their arguments in this MOU. What we're saying is what we would do is repeal the bad legislation for everybody, not just the favored few that the Prime Minister picks.
Right, but I mean, none of that, just as a final point, gets around the need to properly consult with First Nations, right? This is still a central challenge here, and the coastal First Nations support LNG. It's bitumen they don't support. That is still a central challenge. I mean, do you see a world where TMX just gets supercharged as a way to get more bitumen to the markets? Because David Eby is on board with that, and that's a much easier path than Northern Gateway.
There is well-established jurisprudence from court decisions on what proper consultation looks like, where the government can still proceed with a project. TMX is not the same as a deep water northern port, which opens up those lucrative Asian markets. Those U.S. tankers going down the coast off British Columbia have access to those markets. Canadians don't. We believe at this critical juncture where we need to be diversifying our trading partners, the government should be offering a clear and predictable path to get to a yes, not an MOU with extended timelines, with all kinds of conditions that even Liberals can't commit to supporting.
Okay, we got to leave it there. I've gone over time. Conservative House Leader Andrew Scheer, we appreciate your time. The clock is ticking.
Okay, well, I mean, that was a very good interview and, for lack of better words, debate between Andrew Scheer and CBC. My takeaway is that the Conservatives have kind of checkmated the Liberals a little bit, because if the Liberals vote for it, the Conservatives actually get a win on the board, which is awesome. If they vote against it, using Mark Carney's own wording, then they look like they don't support a pipeline. And I don't really know the repercussions if they go down that route. I'm sure CBC, CTV, and the media conglomerate, the machine, is going to back up their decisions. Well, it wasn't exactly what we had proposed. There was some differences, and we don't want to do that, and blah, 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 and we're going to do it our way. I don't really know. But for the average Canadian who's tuning in to any little piece of news from today in Canada, who sees the Liberals deny a motion for a pipeline the Conservatives are putting through, it shows that the Liberals, they want everything. They want the credit. They want everything. They don't want any of the backlash, and they want everything, and they're not willing to work with anybody else. They're willing to take other people's ideas, but they're not willing to work with anybody else. So that's pretty telling. And we're going to find out very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to find out very, very soon. Question period has now begun. Well, it is now starting up. The House is opened up. So we're going to take a look at that. All I ask in return is for you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This is going to be heated because the debate for the pipeline is after the vote for the Conservative motion is right after question period. So you're going to want to stick around for the full thing if you can. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Climbed to nearly 80%. Graduations rates are approaching 90%. Wow. And the community continues to grow and evolve, strengthening its economy, Mr. Speaker, and expanding its opportunities. Chief Paul has also led some of the most significant Indigenous business investments in our country, including the 50% acquisition of Clearwater Seafoods. His leadership, Mr. Speaker, has reshaped opportunity for Member 2, Mi'kmaq, and all of Cape Breton. His induction is well-earned and well-deserved. Walalin, Chief Paul.
The honourable member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, for over 40 years, the Penticton Shooting Sports Association has operated a facility that includes multiple ranges on land lease from the federal government. But unless action is taken before December 31st, it will be forced to close forever. For decades, it has provided a family-friendly atmosphere for hunters and sport shooters in a safe and responsible environment. The range has provided an essential local training resource for RCMP and CBSA, and even National Police Force. President Brian Sauvé said today in the Public Safety Committee that RCMP need more training facilities like this one. MPs at that same committee unanimously passed a motion to support the extension of the club's lease, and over 10,000 Canadians signed a petition. I call on the Minister for Agriculture to renew the lease of the Penticton Shooting Sports Association.
The honourable member for Saint Jean. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to pay tribute to someone with a remarkable professional career. Not only has she been a colleague for 6 years, she is now also a friend. Diane Godin has been a pillar of my office and a key figure in political life since the fall of 1994. Over the years, she has served 5 members of this place with remarkable professionalism: Louise Baudouin, Yves Lessard, Bertrand Saint-Arnaud, Dave Turcotte, and myself. Although we like to tease Diane, she is proof that age only matters in one place, the heart. Diane's a bit like our Dominique Michel. Even though she sometimes talks about when she's going to retire, we remind her we can't do without her. And for good reason. She's a rock star in community networks, and not a day goes by without someone telling me about the incredible service she provides constituents. Empathy and kindness are her calling card. Thank you, Diane, for your big heart and for the countless lives you've touched. Quebec and Saint-Jean owe you a lot.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Today I rise to honour Adolf Haefman of Wellesley Township, who passed away this fall at the age of 95. Adolf's life was a story of resilience and of service. Born in Poland, he fled with his family during the Second World War, immigrating to Canada with just 15 cents in his pocket. He worked on farms, then in Kitchener's manufacturing section, before building a new life in Wellesley Township. In 1970, Adolf and his wife Emily purchased a small grocery store in Wellesley and turned it into a thriving business. His character shone through in the quiet moments, gestures like slipping food into the bag of a family in need, or granting credit with no questions asked. Adolf Haefman helped found the Wellesley Apple and Butter and Cheese Festival, a tradition that continues to bring our community together every year. He was named Wellesley Citizen of the Year and remained a pillar of generosity throughout his life. To his family and friends, thank you for sharing Adolf with us. His life reminds us that true success is measured by the lives we touch. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Niagara West.
Mr. Speaker, it really does pay to be Brookfield under this government. Just last month, Canadians were told we're sending $528 million of our money to the European Space Agency. That's great news for European jobs, and an even bigger coincidence for Brookfield, because it just happens to own 50% of a campus in the UK that's home to a major ESA faculty. I'm sure the Prime Minister, the former chair of Brookfield Asset Management, was just as surprised as the rest of us when this deal landed. This is the same Brookfield that, while the Prime Minister was in the chair, used Bermuda addresses above bike shops and Cayman Island post office boxes to avoid paying billions in Canadian taxes. Billions that could have helped more than the 2.2 million Canadians now rely buying them food banks every month, or the young families who've given up of dreaming of ever owning their own home. Connections and connected insiders keep winning while regular Canadians keep getting the bill. Conservatives will keep exposing this every single day because clearly someone has to. Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
As we wrap up the fall session, I rise to reflect on the work we are advancing together. This fall, our government has been working on strengthening healthcare and including simplifying residency pathway so Canadian in every community can access a family doctor and introducing the PSW tax credit to support personal support workers. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2025 also invests in communities.
Yeah,
like
we're all
Brampton,
thinking it. We don't know what the hell she's saying.
$25 million in TMU New Medical School, the first built in the GTA more than a century. We are also supporting state-of-the-art AI infrastructure at the University of Toronto. Investments like these have the potential to strengthen and streamline healthcare. Mr. Speaker, as we enter the holiday season, I wish everyone in Brampton South and across Canada happy holidays and happy New Year.
The honourable member for Miramichi Grand Lake.
2012, the Liberals accepted the resignation of Minister Bev Oda over a $16 glass of orange juice. That's right. Welcome to Mark Carney's Canada in 2025, where every Canadian now drinks $16 orange juice. The Prime Minister told Canadians he would be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Well, let's judge. Families in Miramichi are trying to survive on about $300 a week for groceries. With Christmas only a few days away, families in my riding are putting items back on the shelf in silence. People in Miramichi are being forced to choose between heat or meat. They say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. This Christmas, Canadians aren't being invited to dinner. The Liberals government is leaving them only misery and tariffs to eat. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would just point out, however, that the member mentioned the proper name of another member in his statement, and that is outside the rules. We have to use titles or writing names. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Poilievre. Mr. Speaker, over the past few months, I've had the chance to meet some extraordinary women who are doing real good in their communities. And this year, we're proud to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the Dominican Missionary Adorers, located in the heart of my riding of Poilievre. Founded in 1945 by Mother Julienne of the Rosary, the organization has played an essential role in our community for 8 decades. Through their action, commitment, and contribution to the well-being of the community, they've supported generations of people, promoted social development, and encouraged initiatives that foster solidarity. Their long legacy is a testament to their constant dedication to the people and families of our neighborhood. As we celebrate this 80th anniversary, we pay tribute to an institution that remains a pillar of Poilievre and a lasting source of inspiration. Thank you.
The honourable member for Grand Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, before this Prime Minister was elected, he said that half of all oil reserves should stay in the ground. But 2 weeks ago, when signing an MOU in the province of Alberta, he said that he's now supportive of a proposal to build an oil pipeline between Alberta and a northern British Columbia port. But now that he's returned to Ottawa, he's telling his Keep It in the Ground caucus not to worry, because this project is never going to get built. This Prime Minister has become a master at telling one group of people one thing and another group of people the complete opposite. But today in this House, Liberals are going to have an opportunity to finally tell Canadians where they actually stand. Will they vote yes to the very words that the Prime Minister wrote in the MOU to support a pipeline, or are they going to vote no and clearly reject a proposal to build a pipeline that would finally cut Canadian dependence on the United States? Canadian voters and investors are watching. What's it going to be? It's simple. Do Liberals support this pipeline or not?
The honourable member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, today we welcome Team Canada's national cricket team to the House. Athletes who have shown that Canadian cricket is world class. Cricket in Canada has roots going back nearly 200 years, and it was Canada's first national sport. That legacy isn't just history. This team is carrying it forward. In 2025, Team Canada went unbeaten through the Americas Regional Qualifier to earn their place at the 2026 ICC Men's T20 World Cup, our second straight qualification. With a new wave of homegrown talent and thriving local and national leagues, cricket is flourishing all across the country. Every year, cricket enthusiasts from across Canada come to Ottawa to raise awareness, advocate for the sport, and play cricket with parliamentarians. Team Canada is proving that Canadian cricket is stepping onto the world stage with ambition and a future that Canadians can cheer for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You guys ready for this today? Hit the like, please. Subscribe to the channel. This is going to be good.
The honourable oral questions.
Oral questions. Questions. All right. Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre.
Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific so that we can sell more of our product outside of the United States to other countries, make our economy more independent, strengthen the Canadian dollar, and the purchasing power of all Canadians. The Prime Minister has always been against, but now, last week, he did an about-face in Alberta. But when he came back here, there was a rebellion in his caucus, so I took the words from his agreement. Is he going to vote for those words, or can't we believe his words? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Memorandum of Understanding is not something that you can pick and choose from. The opposition leader chose a few words, but not all the words. He forgot the industrial carbon price.
Ah, there it is.
The strengthening of that price. He forgot the methane regulations. He forgot net zero 2050. You have to eat the entire meal, not just
the appetizer. There you go. Now we know the truth.
Eat the entire meal. Well, that would be great if Canadians could buy a full meal, Mr. Speaker. But he's talking about a carbon tax that continues to apply on equipment for farmers, on fertilizer, on those who deliver foods to our stores. And it's causing food inflation to the point that it now is going to cost $17,000 to feed a family of four for a year. Why not get rid of these taxes on groceries so that Canadians can feed their families? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, there is no carbon tax on Canadian farms, which have emissions below 50 kilotons. The impact of the industrial carbon tax on the price of food in Canada, according to the Climate Institute, is about zero.
The Honourable Leader of the
What happened to the imaginary tax?
Mr. Speaker, Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific to sell $30 billion of our energy overseas, outside of the U.S. market, making us more independent, self-reliant, our dollar, and therefore Canadians' purchasing power stronger. The Prime Minister always opposed the pipeline, which his party killed, but last week he flip-flopped and promised while he was in Alberta in a deal that he would build such a pipeline. So I took the very wording right out of that deal and put it into a motion before the House of Commons. He experienced a massive rebellion in his own caucus, but if he's going to vote against his own words, how can Canadians ever believe his words?
There you go. This is very good for the Conservatives.
Mr. Speaker, as the Canadian national cricket team knows, you've got to play the whole T20.
Because we know that cricket is the face of Canada.
It's not just a couple of overs. It's not just the pipeline. It's not just pathways. It is a price on industrial price on carbon that goes to $130 effective. It is reductions in methane. It is net zero 2050. It is building Alberta strong, Canada strong. strong, durable, sustainable, and...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I took the wording for the motion right out of his deal. And if he votes against the motion, he's voting against a pipeline to the Pacific. He's voting against overriding the discriminatory and anti-Canadian ban on shipping our energy abroad. He's voting against consultation with the First Nations people and the British Columbia government, and he's even voting against his own beloved carbon capture and storage, all of which I took word for word right out of his own deal. So if the Prime Minister is only in favor of pipeline when he's in Alberta, but against when he's in BC and Ottawa, how can Canadians even keep track of where he stands on anything?
There you go. Phenomenal, Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to welcome the fact that to my hearing for the first time ever in this House, the Leader of the Opposition has acknowledged the constitutional right of Indigenous people to full, free, and fair. For the first time, he's ever acknowledged the role of the provinces in these pipelines. But he hasn't acknowledged yet the need for an industrial carbon price or the reduction in methane, two things that the Premier of Alberta acknowledged, signed wholeheartedly as part of a complete meal.
Oh, fuck off. We don't want that.
Mr. Speaker, not only do we acknowledge the obligation to consult with our First Peoples, we put that right in the motion. It's right there. It's right there, Mark. It is. We put it right there, Mark. So that he could vote for the words that he put in the agreement. Well, let's be honest. He never planned to honor the agreement. He whispered quietly to the Keep It in the Ground Liberal caucus, don't worry, there will never be a pipeline. We'll delay it until after the election, and then, God forbid, if we win, he says he would kill it altogether. Why can't he say one thing to all Canadians and champion the pipeline with us today?
Oh my goodness, Pierre is murdering him.
Mr. Speaker, the MOU between the Government of Canada and the Province of Alberta is about a pipeline. It is about carbon capture and storage. It is about interties with the clean electricity grid of British Columbia. It's about artificial intelligence data centers. It is about an industrial carbon price that works. It is about methane regulations that get methane down 75% so that we can have the lowest emission, low risk, lowest cost oil in the world and build this country.
Nah, people don't care about the carbon tax stuff, man. They don't want that.
We put the interties proposal right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the carbon capture right in the motion, right out of his deal. We put the pipeline and the overriding of the oil shipping ban right in the motion. It came right out of the deal that he signed. So now it's clear that the only thing he really cares about is that it doesn't include an industrial carbon tax that will drive jobs out, drive grocery prices up. Why is it that he wants a carbon tax without a pipeline when what we really need is a pipeline without a carbon tax?
Very good, Chair. Very good.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made. Mr. Speaker, I'm not a lifelong member of this House, so I don't know all the rules, but I don't think there's a limit on the size of motions. And in fact, since the MOU is already translated, I think it would be very easy to take the entire MOU in both official languages and propose them if the members opposite would support everything that the Premier of Alberta has done.
What a weird projection.
The honourable member.
Yeah, that debate win goes to Pierre.
Mr. Speaker, we read this morning a letter from the former Minister of the Environment and former Minister of Heritage, and apparently he's not very happy, but still a member of the Liberal caucus, and he has described the setbacks and the problems with the agreement between the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Alberta. What I need to know from the Prime Minister is he going to choose the environment and his own caucus, or is he going to choose the investors in the oil companies? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the government has chosen Canadians. the future of all Canadians. That means good jobs. That means a sustainable, prosperous economy with major investments in every form of energy and with a future for Quebec that is clean and prosperous. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Prime Minister's words are more cute than they are specific. Moving on to the religious exemption.
Wow,
does
even the
the
Block's
Prime
not
Minister
happy.
agree with his Justice Minister? Or is he not in agreement with his Minister of Justice? Does he agree with the Justice Minister who seems to agree with the Bloc? So what I'd like to know is what is his position, and I think people have a right to understand his personal
Honestly,
position.
that was a pretty sick debate.
Does the Prime Minister,
And Pierre did
is he
phenomenal.
ready
Can we
to
get some W's in the
respect,
chat for
religious
Pierre?
minorities, or is he going to respect all Quebecers?
That was freaking awesome, man.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-9, which the member across the way is talking about, it's a bill that is there to protect religions. It's to protect temples, synagogues, churches, mosques. And I know that members of the Justice Committee are currently discussing changes, possible amendments to that law. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. So among the religions to be protected, is there Adil Sharkawi, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we've learned that somebody who's close to the Prime Minister and who's close to the Liberal Party of Canada, we believe that it's just like in the Trudeau era, we've understood that this person has spoken out in favor of the discount drivers, the drivers who are dangerous on our roads. I'd like to ask the Prime Minister, is he going to serve the Friends of the Liberal Party, or is he going to serve Canadians and their safety? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, unacceptable words are always unacceptable, and that's clear. That's absolutely clear. We are working and always working to protect truckers. We are always working to protect rights, and that is why the government is tightening the rules for truckers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of trucks, they take steel, unlike what the Prime Minister said when he asked a reporter whether he or anybody uses steel anymore in Canada. You know, farm equipment takes steel as well. And farming takes fertilizer. All of these things are taxed by the industrial carbon tax. Sorry I have to give this elementary lesson in the supply chain to the Prime Minister, but it's a reality. And with this tax, food prices have gone up so that Canadians now have to spend $17,000 a year on groceries. Before Christmas, will he get rid of that tax, or will he be the Grinch of the grocery store?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for a fleeting moment there, I thought we were going to get another lecture on wood. We were all bracing ourselves over here for another one of those Leader of the Opposition lectures on wood. I do take his point on steel. Indeed, there is steel in farm equipment. Indeed, Canadian farmers are the best in the world. Indeed, our Minister of Agriculture and the entire government are rallying behind them to support our farmers, to support our steel workers, to support our economy, to build big projects with Alberta, with British Columbia. We're going to keep doing that, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yet the Prime Minister is afraid to stand up and debate grocery prices. He says he knows so much about inflation. Well, he's certainly caused a lot in his life, Mr. Speaker. Then he should be able to stand up and defend the very industrial carbon tax that he says is even more important than a pipeline from Alberta. An industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, food processors, at a time when Canadians are paying twice what they were a decade ago for groceries. At Christmas time, will he do the right thing, get rid of this tax so Canadians can eat?
The Honourable Minister Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, let me make it really simple for the member opposite. The industrial...
We have to be able to hear the Minister. The Honourable Minister from the top, please.
On the top. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apparently, I need to repeat it again and again.
You're
so let me do that. To make it
destroying
simple for the member opposite, the industrial carbon price does not increase the cost of food. It does not apply to farms. But more than that, if we're going to look at that food price report that he is referring to, perhaps he wants to refer to the other parts of it, which is climate change and weather events have become a growing concern for agricultural producers, and increasingly severe and unpredictable weather events are disrupting agricultural production, creating supply challenges that continue to influence food prices across Canada. They should get on board to fight climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how high they raise the taxes, they're not going to change the weather, Mr. Speaker. And the Prime Minister should be willing to stand up before Christmas and look the seniors in the eye who can't afford to feed themselves, the single mothers who can't afford to feed their children and buy Christmas gifts this winter, while he not only does an industrial carbon taxes on farmers and fertilizer, but a food packaging tax, which will increase grocery prices by $1 billion across the land. So will the Prime Minister live up to his promise to be judged by the prices of the grocery store and get rid of those hidden Liberal taxes on food?
Well said. Throw a W down in the chat, everybody.
The Leader of the Opposition has said he doesn't want to do anything about climate change. He wants to talk about imaginary taxes. But when we want to do things for Canadians that are really struggling, as he points out, like, by the way, index in Canada Child Benefit to inflation, ensure that we have a strong school nutrition program, sign agreements on childcare that are saving families in Ontario $10,400 a year on average, Mr. Speaker. They vote against those supports. So which is it? They don't want to fight climate change. They don't want to stand up for Canadians. What are they doing here?
How much taxes to fix the weather?
Leader of the Opposition.
Stand up for Canadians. The Prime Minister won't even stand up in the House of Commons and answer a question about groceries. She calls, a moment ago, he was bragging about his industrial carbon tax. And now his minister says it's imaginary. So apparently the Prime Minister is imagining things again, Mr. Speaker. How can Canadians keep straight his story on grocery prices where one day he promises to be judged by the price of food, the next day he says we need a more of a tax on food, and his own minister says it's all in his head.
Jobs and Family.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, what I said was it's all in that member's head, that there are no taxes on food, there are no taxes on farms. But rather than look for solutions, Mr. Speaker, they just throw roadblocks in the way of every single Canadian who knows that they need supports in difficult times. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, what Canadians are counting on is a government that will stand with them, that will make sure that when they don't have access to dental care, they can get their teeth fixed, that as a senior ages, their income will be geared to inflation, Mr. Speaker, that the Canada Child Benefit will keep up with the cost of living. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? Time and time again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, as Canadians walk down grocery aisles week after week looking at prices rising to the point where they can no longer afford even to buy beef or put meat and potatoes on their dinner table, they see the Prime Minister who promised that he would be judged by the price at the grocery store, unwilling to even stand up and defend his appalling record of increasing grocery bills by $1,000 for the year to come. It's not just his industrial carbon tax. He's doubled the deficit Trudeau left behind, which will once again stoke inflation. Why is he forcing Canadians to feed his morbidly obese deficit rather than feeding their families?
Well said, Pierre. Throw some W's down for Pierre.
Financial institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while that Conservative leader continues to spin the same old rhetoric, we've been focused on cutting taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut the tax for first-time home buyers. We continue to lean in on affordability, school food programs, automatic federal benefits, the list goes on and on. Mr. Speaker, we are laser focused on this side on affordability.
These people are such lying pieces of shit.
Leader and his party continues to spin the same old tired rhetoric time and time again. Thank you.
you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, I'm glad that member got that off his chest, but the reality is that the question was for the Prime Minister. He's the one who promised to spend less, and yet he doubled the deficit that Justin Trudeau left behind. His deficit is $16 billion bigger than he promised. He's added about $90 billion of net new spending, most of it on governmental operations. And all of this will contribute to the inflation Canadians are paying at the grocery store. So why won't he stand up and take account for the food price inflation he's caused while Canadians struggle to put Christmas dinner on the table?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, newsflash, we're in a trade war. We need to work together. The government of Alberta supports this MOU in its entirety. The citizens of Alberta gave our Prime Minister 2 standing ovations in Calgary
speak up about this.
MOU. The only people who are divided on this are the Conservatives. They should get on board and build Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Maybe we should tell that to the Liberal member for West Vancouver Sunshine Coast, the Liberal member for Vancouver Grenville, the Liberal member for Beaches East York, the Liberal member for Victoria, for Vancouver Quadra, South Surrey White Rock, Honoré Mercier, Fleetwood Port Kells, Laurier St. Marie, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, North Vancouver, Capilano. These are all the 11 Liberal MPs who have spoken out against the Prime Minister's deal, and instead of standing up to them, instead of standing up to the Leave It in the Ground Liberal caucus, he's backed down, put them back in charge, and blocked his own pipeline.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, every one of those 11 people, indeed every one of the 170 people on this side of the House who were elected to put Canadians to work, building major projects, building it with Canadian steel, Canadian
the Liberals look so freaking stupid right now.
workers, protecting those most vulnerable, coming to the aid of families. 170 Liberal members on this side of the House supporting a strong Canada, a compassionate Canada, and we are completely united on all of that, Mr. Speaker.
There is no defending this for the Liberals. Now the world sees
The honourable
that all they cared about was the industrial carbon tax. This is pathetic.
Mr. Speaker, we wondered why the Liberals... the honourable member can start from the top. We don't hear very well. So he can go ahead. Mr. Speaker, we were wondering why the Liberals are protecting low-cost drivers by shifting their responsibilities to the provinces. Well, imagine this. One of the Prime Minister's closest organizers, Tej Dulat, works for the companies that hire these drivers. At the Prime Minister's swearing-in ceremony, this generous Liberal donor was even seated right next to him. No risk of confusing him with a lobbyist because he's not even listed in the lobbying registry. He's using his privileged relationship with the Prime Minister to defend discount drivers, even if it means putting lives at risk. Is that why the Liberals aren't doing anything on this file? The Honourable Minister of Transport.
Holy shit. That's
Mr.
pretty corrupt.
Speaker, it's this Prime Minister who has called on the CRA to crack down on these discount drivers. It's this Prime Minister who's ordered more inspections to make sure that the Canadian Labour Code is being respected. It's this Prime Minister who's making sure that trucking companies, legitimate trucking companies, can operate in Canada. And that's been recognized in a meeting that I had this morning with who? The Quebec Association of Truckers, who've congratulated the government for everything that has been done by this government. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Quebec Truckers Association also says that there's a lot of things the government can still do to fix this file. When it comes to discount drivers, the Liberals once again appear to be protecting the interests of their friends. unless it's the interests of their own pockets, because in addition to the Prime Minister's organizer, who's lobbying unofficially, the Liberals have received $85,000 in donations from people linked to discount drivers. It's extremely worrying to see their inaction when road accidents have gone up by 35% in Quebec in just 1 year. If road safety is really a priority for the Liberals, how is it that the Bloc's 10 requests have not been applied? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, in all the actions that have been taken by the Prime Minister, by the Minister of Finance, by the Labour Minister and the Minister of Transport to crack down on these discount drivers, regime that I would note was created by Mr. Harper, one thing has been missed, and I think that Mr. Plamondon is going to come and reproach the Bloc Québécois because the Bloc is asking for the federal government to interfere in the jurisdiction of the government of Quebec to fix their issues and their problems. Mr. Speaker, we're not going to do that.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
The Prime Minister can't be trusted on pipelines. He endorsed Justin Trudeau's cancellation of the approved Northern Gateway pipeline and stopped the shipment of Canadian oil through northern BC. Now he claims he might allow a new pipeline, but his Liberal MPs insist that it will never get built. Instead of playing both sides, the Prime Minister should definitively endorse a new pipeline to Canada's west coast and cancel the Liberal ban on shipping oil from northern BC. Will the Prime Minister finally stop the doublespeak, stop obstructing the pipeline, and vote for the Conservative motion today?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, for a future pipeline, it means diversifying our trade and greater competitiveness on a global scale. We need to put cards in our hand to fight this trade war. But there are things we need to do to get there. Things like in the Memorandum of Understanding that we can get united behind, like the carbon price. The Conservative motion conveniently ignores strengthening industrial carbon pricing. The leader opposes something that the Premier of Alberta agrees with. We support the entire MOU. We hope they will.
The honourable member for Chilliwack Hope.
Mr. Speaker, we'll take no lessons from a minister who conducts Indigenous consultations over Zoom. We absolutely will oppose a carbon tax in all of its forms, Mr. Speaker. This Prime Minister has said that he has told us keep it in the ground caucus that the pipeline will never happen, while he promises Albertans that it might. So today he can finally come clean with Canadians and provide crystal clear clarity. He can support our motion, which is based on his MOU, vote to cancel his tanker ban and greenlight a new pipeline. So why doesn't he get out of the way, stop obstructing the pipeline, and vote for our Conservative motion?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, what you're hearing from member opposite is exactly the problem with this MOU. It discounts several things. One, that in a federation, we work together. We work with provinces, we work with Indigenous communities to make things happen. Getting out of the way is only a strategy if you want to get nothing done. The way to get things done is to work together. And for every single member for British Columbia on the other side of the House, I ask, how can they support a motion that ignores British Columbia and British Columbians completely? They should be ashamed of themselves.
The honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
Today is a monumental day for Canada's energy sector and for my province of Alberta. We will see if the Liberals stand behind their Prime Minister's promise to build a pipeline for Canada, or will he do as his predecessor and submit to his Keep It in the Ground caucus. Families in my riding are worried that this Prime Minister is paying lip service once again and that these are empty words. And it's no surprise as to why, after how this government has destroyed the natural resources sector over the last decade. So will the Liberals stop obstructing a pipeline and vote for our motion, or will Alberta have its hopes dashed again?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Speaker, I think that honourable member should tell her constituents this, that this government was elected to do big things, that we are focused on making the largest infrastructure investment in Canadian history, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be building bridges, community centres, hospitals, transit, thousands of good-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker, with Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Canadian aluminum, with Canadian skilled trades workers. But the Conservatives voted against every single part of this, Mr. Speaker. Voted against building houses, voted against major projects, voted against opportunities for youth. When will the Conservatives get on board, Mr. Speaker?
The honourable member for Calgary Midnapore.
Well, this Prime Minister ancestors
That's
are
what they
saying
do.
one thing in one province and another thing in another. Albertans want the truth. In a pathetic display of misrepresentation, his own Calgary MP couldn't even defend the leading sector and source of livelihood for Calgarians. So will this Prime Minister stand in this House and tell the nation, tell Alberta, tell Calgary, and tell the member for Calgary Confederation that his government will not blame anyone else, not put this on anyone else, and that he will ensure a pipeline is built?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the MOU is about building Canada strong. The people of Alberta, I was born in Calgary. I talk to Albertans every single day, and they know that our Prime Minister is bringing Canadians together to build big things, to build a stronger economy. Meanwhile, the Conservative leader has spent 20 years in this House, including as a minister, and has built nothing, continues to divide Canadians, continues to play political games. Mr. Speaker, now is not a time to play games. It's time for serious leadership to step up and build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Northwest.
The Prime Minister is talking out of both sides of his mouth on pipelines and tanker bans. Behind closed doors, he whispers to Liberal Keep It in the Ground caucus that the pipeline will never be built, while signing an MOU to build one for Canadians. The Liberals say they are for a tanker ban, but then the Prime Minister promised to override it in the MOU. The Prime Minister promises Indigenous communities a seat at the table for a pipeline, but has ignored them for the last 8 months and is cutting them out of the tripartite decision-making table. Will the Liberals stop obstructing the pipeline by voting for their own MOU?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services.
Thank you. You know, I want to speak to what the Conservative Party claims this motion speaks to. While on one hand, they speak to half the sentence of respecting consultations for Indigenous people, they are also speaking on the other side of their mouth to the jurisprudence that would allow these projects to move forward. So I want to understand, what are they doing? Are they consulting or pushing projects forward? Because that's the concern of Indigenous people. That is what they're bringing to the table. That is what we're looking at when they come and work with us in partnership, and that is the future that they want to decide on with us.
The Honourable Member for The Honourable Member for Acadianapolis.
The Prime Minister said he would be judged by the minister responsible for COA knows well that fisheries.
He pretended to be a conservative with conservative talking points. What a piece of shit. Wow.
I was afraid this would happen. Not from the top, but he may continue.
Mr. Speaker, the minister responsible for COA knows well that fisheries, forestry, and agriculture remain at the heart of Nova Scotia's economy. When the Atlantic Economic Panel was announced 2 weeks ago, where representatives from these sectors included, and could the minister tell us how he plans to ensure that these important industries will have a way to contribute to the panel's work?
Great question. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Conservative Shadow Minister for Economic Development in Atlantic Canada for being finally permitted to ask a question about Nova Scotia in the House of Commons. Now, Mr. Speaker, it speaks volumes about the Conservative Party that since he has joined the government, they are yet to actually replace him and go without a voice from Atlantic Canada representing the economic interests of Atlantic Canada. Yes, we rely on these traditional industries that he cited in his question, but we've appointed a private sector-led panel of business leaders to shoot the path forward on energy, on defense, on clean tech to ensure we have good pay and jobs.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
I think it's safe to say, after all of that, the Prime Minister regrets telling Canadians that he's going to be judged by the prices at the grocery store, because these prices are skyrocketing and it's only getting worse. Now, 1 in 10 people in Toronto are using a food bank, and even full-time job holders have to use one too. Instead of getting full carts at the grocery store, Canadians get to watch trending TikTok videos about making what they're calling poverty meals. That's out of ramen and hot dogs. So can the Prime Minister seriously say, with a straight face, that this is the standard that he wants Canadians to live
That
under?
ain't a poverty meal, dude. That's a college meal.
The Honourable Secretary of State for
That's a
Children
saving money
and
meal.
Youth.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. While the Prime Minister is delivering for Canadians, let's take a moment to reflect on the hypocrisy of the members opposite in this House. They voted against meals for children at school. They voted against $800 worth of savings for families through the school food program. They voted against dental care for seniors and for children. And they voted against saving parents thousands of dollars on childcare. If the members opposite want to talk about judgment, Mr. Speaker, they should start by looking at their own record. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Is that after a decade in power, let Ottawa feed your kids, they've already admitted their failure after 10 years. Let me put it in context, though, for that minister. The number of people using a food bank in Toronto alone could fill the Rogers Centre 8 times every single month. And with the average grocery bill set to rise by $1,000 next year, the government's $11 a year tax cut to those who need it most isn't going to cut it. So no, we will not vote for it. Instead of giving crumbs back to Canadians, why don't they cut the taxes off of food and let Canadians have a meal at home?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, for starters, there is no tax on food. That's right. We can start there. Canadian families with children under 6 are receiving up to $8,000 a year tax-free per child. This is a program that is tagged to inflation to meet and keep up with the cost of living. Members opposite, year after year, vote against investments like the Canada Child Benefit. It is shameful. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Canadians aren't asking for more government programs. They're just asking for the dignity and respect of being able to provide for themselves and their families. Right now, Canadians are struggling more than ever to be able to afford things. And in my riding, I just received a phone call from an elderly gentleman who shared with me that he's now down to 1 meal per day. And he's desperate. And he's without hope. And he's looking at this government and he's saying that they've abandoned him. And so he's looking for an answer. Will the Liberals simply repeat their tired talking points about big government programs and the food school program, or will they actually provide a real solution to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, if you listen to the Conservatives over there, Mr. Speaker, there is no solution. The solution is sink or swim. If you can't afford to feed your family, oh well, too bad. The state's not there to take care of you.
What are you talking
but here
about?
in Canada, we've
The goal
always
is to
believed in
make
taking
food and
care of
life
each other.
affordable.
It's why we're known for our universal healthcare system around the world. And Mr. Speaker, we've built on that. We make sure that we take care of people who need food. We make sure that families who need extra help get the Canada Child Benefit. We make sure that if you're working poor, you get a working income tax benefit. Because why, Mr. Speaker? We believe that Canada is stronger when it includes all of us.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Again, Canadians are not asking for more government programs or to be spoken to in the manner that that minister just did. They are simply asking to be respected and empowered to be able to provide for themselves. And one of the best ways that this government can do that is by taking unnecessary taxes off of food. According to the latest report, food prices next year are going to go up by about $1,000 more per family. $1,000. There's a woman in my riding who recently reached out to me as she has 4 kids and she relies on the food bank. She feels desperate and without hope. She just wants the dignity of being able to provide for her kids. Well, the Liberals
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, I think that you've heard it from this side, and we will keep on saying it. We are there to support Canadians, and you hear about the many programs that they voted against that we are putting in place to support Canadians. But if we're going to rely on that food report, also should look at what it said about, for example, the price of beef, which says nearly a decade of drought in the leading beef-producing area of Canada has resulted in the smallest number of cattle since the late 1980s. Reduced supply and consistent demand creates upward pressure. The cost of food is going up because of climate change. There is no tax on food, but we will be there to provide the programs to help Canadians.
The honourable member for York Durham.
Here's a resident they're not supporting, Mr. Speaker. He wrote to me and said, quote, I have lived in the same neighborhood for more than a decade, and almost every essential cost of living has increased dramatically. He had the receipts for his groceries from $200 a month to $600 a month. And what did the Prime Minister say? We should judge him by the price of groceries at the store. Well, that's some judgment, Mr. Speaker, some failure. And next year will get worse. Canadians will pay $1,000 or more according to the Food Rights Report. Given those struggles, will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending, scrap the carbon tax, and get rid of the new fuel tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's almost the holidays. Goodwill to all. The opposition leader says, nah, let's circle back next year after my leadership review. Meanwhile, hardworking Canadians wait for a well-earned tax break. They wait for a $50,000 first-time homebuyer's tax cut. Children wait for healthy meals at school. Families and seniors wait for affordable housing. And in addition to that member won't even stand up in this House and support the healthcare infrastructure fund that would build a hospital in Durham region that's badly needed for a family. He should be ashamed of himself.
The honourable member for Mégantic, l'Érable, L'Aude-Binière. The Prime Minister sat just across the way, made it a personal issue. He told Canadians that he wanted to be judged on the price of groceries. Irrespective of the excuses the Liberals keep repeating in the House today, it was the Prime Minister himself who decided what he wanted to be judged on. Well, not only has he failed miserably to bring prices down, but the bill will increase by another $1,000 next year. Why has the Prime Minister duped Canadians who are increasingly lining up at food banks because of his inflationary spending? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's rather unfortunate to spend so much energy to be elected, only just to harp on the same thing over and over again, speaking points from their leader to answer. It's even sadder to see that they vote against the childcare benefits, against the school food program that is saving $800 for the most vulnerable families. They voted against affordable housing, Mr. Speaker. They voted against the dental care system. When he talks about inflationary spending, I would like him to tell us what he even means by that. The honourable member for Mégantic, l'Érable, L'Aude-Binière. Consultants, bureaucracy, all of that. No Liberals has stood up to defend the Prime Minister who said to Canadians, you will judge me on the price of groceries. That is what he said. 36% of Quebecers face food insecurity, 3 million visits per month to food banks in Quebec. The Prime Minister's wealthy friends are certainly not affected by the reality of families skipping meals. They have enough money. They eat their fill. He promised to lower food prices. He misled Canadians. Will he stop his inflationary spending so that families can finally eat their fill, Mr. Speaker? The Honourable Minister. In the previous answer, Mr. Speaker, I listed everything against which they voted that supports people in his riding, Quebecers and Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We were elected to give opportunities to all Canadians and to all Quebecers, and that's what we're doing. 54,000 jobs created in November, 67,000 in October, 60,000 created in September. Unemployment is going down, inflation is going down, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, we are building the strongest G7 economy. The honourable member for
Same Liberal talking points.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said that we needed to judge him on the cost of groceries. 8 months later, the price of food has exploded and families can't feed themselves. The 2026 report forecasts a worsening situation in Saguenay. 70 organizations that offer food assistance confirm that requests have gone up faster than what is available. When will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spending so that Canadians can eat their fill? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize how good my colleagues' local teams are, hockey-wise, but what he doesn't really recognize is that no one in the Saguenay is saying, take these programs away. Remove the school food program. We don't like it. Remove support for organizations. We don't like it. Remove support for volunteers. We hate that. Remove the housing benefits. No one is saying that in the Saguenay, Mr. Speaker. The member should vote with us to keep these supports for the people of the Saguenay and elsewhere in our country. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals need to stop burying their heads in the sand, and they need to be aware of what is actually happening on the ground. The majority of requests now come from families where both parents work. We're no longer talking about single parents, and that's alarming. The Canadian Food Report predicts an additional $1,000 per year per family for food, one of the largest increases ever seen in our history. When will the government allow Canadians to finally feed themselves with dignity? The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minister for Public Services and Procurement, asked a very pertinent question earlier. What is an inflationary expenditure at the end of the day? Month after month, day after day, week after week, in these halls, we're asking, is it supporting aluminium workers? Is it helping kids eat at school? Is it helping people with their dental care? Is that inflationary spending? Is it health transfers to province? What is an inflationary spending? After all of these months, could we finally get a definition of an inflationary spending?
The honourable member for Winnipeg South Centre.
Mr. Speaker, in my father's dying days, he mustered the courage to stand in this chamber to fight for the passage of his private member's bill that set out a vision for the prairie provinces to continue playing their prominent role in our federation. That vision was realized with the passage of the Green Prairie Economy Act, which received royal assent shortly after his passing on December 12, 2022. Can the minister responsible for prairies share how the newly announced Prairie Partnership Initiative enhances this vision and establishes new opportunities for growth across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank the member for Winnipeg South Centre for his question and for his continued support as we advance the legacy that his father set in motion for a stronger prairie economy.
Here, here.
The Prairie Partnership Initiative is a new coordinated approach that gives significant prairie projects a clear pathway through the federal system so that they can move from ambition to action. By aligning federal expertise with prairie priorities, the PPI will help meet this critical moment by positioning the prairies at the
The honourable member for Middlesex.
I don't like that at all.
The Minister told Canadians that he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, Canadians have judged, and they're angry. When the Liberals came into office in 2015, the Canadian grocery bill was $159 a week. And after 10 years, it's more than doubled now to $338. Greg from Kamoka wrote me to say that he's sick of the rules for you and not for me attitude. Speaker, families can't afford meat, and they're lining up at food banks while these Liberals continue to feast at public expense. So why does this Prime Minister think that he deserves luxury while Canadians can't afford lunch?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, watching the leader of the Conservative Party lose in slow motion today has been a little bit amusing, but what's more interesting is watching him do it with a big grin on his face because he's so proud of himself. He's proud to vote against childcare, and he's proud to vote against school food programs, and he's so proud to vote against affordable housing. But what else he's proud of today, he's also proud to call climate change just weather. And he's also proud to refer to Indigenous people with a possessive noun. They're not ours. Mr. Speaker, he seems very proud of himself, but you know what Canadians are proud of? They're proud of our institutions. They're proud of programs that support them, and they're proud of this side on this government. We're supporting them.
The honourable member for Middlesex, London.
Are starving, and this member is making fun of things, and I say the Liberals should all be judged by the prices at the grocery store. Bad Liberal policies are what's driving up the cost of food by $1,000 next year. Caitlin from Thames Centre says the government is driving us into systemic destruction at the cost of food, fuel, and groceries soar. Albert from Strathroy asks why the Prime Minister promised cheaper groceries, safer streets, and more homes, but after 7 months, all he's delivered is higher prices, higher crime, and less for hardworking Canadians. So do the Liberals even care that there's over 2.2 million visits to food banks, or are they just here to help Brookfield line the Prime Minister's pockets?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker. First, there's no taxes on groceries. There's no taxes on food. There will never be taxes on groceries, and there will never be taxes on food. And that member's a farmer. She should know better. She should know that the industrial carbon price has absolutely no impact on the cost of groceries, Mr. Speaker. They keep talking about things like the price of coffee. Maybe they should stand up and talk about how industrial carbon pricing in Canada affects the Colombian price of coffee, Mr. Speaker. It's absurd, Mr. Speaker. They're very, very proud to vote against all these programs that support Canadians, but if they could just provide Canadians with one solution to help them at the grocery store over this holiday season. Merry Christmas. Yeah, truly, Merry Christmas.
The honourable member for Saskatoon South.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store.
Yeah, we've heard
Guess
this
what,
one quite a
Mr.
bit.
Speaker? I have a better idea. Come to my food bank. 23,000 visits a month at the Saskatoon Food Bank. And better yet, we have a resurgence of scurvy in northern Saskatchewan. The Canadian Food Price Report confirms additional $1,000 will be needed next year to feed a family of 4. So is the Prime Minister ready to remove the industrial carbon?
Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let's see what has this tired and old opposition accomplished in the last 10 years. Addressing food affordability, zero achievement. Addressing housing needs, zero achievement. Building major projects, zero achievement. Addressing challenge of tariffs, zero achievement. But their negative attitude towards Canada must stop. Because if they don't stop attacking Canada, I'm saying today I'm going to take every single one of them off my Christmas card list.
Why do I feel like they're not on your Christmas card list? Also, why would anyone care about your Christmas card list? We don't even know your name.
The honourable member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, last week the President of the Treasury Board held and hosted a co-summit on reduction of the red tape, bringing together the leaders from across the country. Could the President update the House what came out of this summit and how this work will help cut red tape, speed up approvals, and strengthen Canada's economy?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. President, I would like to thank my colleague for this excellent question. The summit was an important step forward, building on the 60-day red tape review we launched in July. We recently announced a new series of horizontal reviews. These reviews look across government to eliminate regulatory barriers and deliver faster and more reliable services so we can grow our economy faster and build Canada strong and to build the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Griesbach.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister told Canadians he should be judged by prices at the grocery store. Well, 8 months later, those prices have skyrocketed. I've heard countless horror stories in Edmonton of families struggling to afford food. I've even heard of single moms selling their furniture online to pay for rent and groceries. Just this week, Miranda from North Edmonton told me, I honestly don't know how people are getting by. It's heat or eat. When will these Liberals cut their inflationary spending and gas the industrial carbon tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
2025 winds down and we're reviewing our Spotify Wrapped. Let's look at the Conservatives' 2025 Wrapped. In 2025, the Conservatives lost their 4th election in a row, spent Alberta's money on a by-election so they could say they created at least one job, invented imaginary taxes, and presented a platform with no plan to support seniors or families. Mr. Speaker, they need to work on their playlist because they are not listening to the same tunes as Canadians.
The honourable member for Vancouver.
The
former Liberal Environment Minister
Minister says this government approved a bitumen pipeline that abandons Canada's climate goals and risks BC's coast. In this House, the Prime Minister said British Columbia and impacted First Nations must agree to this project. In BC, the Energy Minister claimed free, prior, and informed consent is required. But the MOU signed between Ottawa and Alberta says no such thing. Liberals are telling one story here, another in BC, and yet another in Alberta. Canadians deserve to know, is consent for this pipeline required or not?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was very clear in this House. He said that the agreement requires agreement from British Columbia, requires the agreement of First Nations. That has been said in this House, and we stand by that right here, right now, and we will continue to.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One section of the enormous Bill C-15, over 600 pages of omnibus budget bill, that's not yet been even mentioned in this place, and it wasn't mentioned in the budget either. So the idea that the Budget Implementation Act just implements things in the budget is belied by pages 301 to 304, with it exempt at ministerial discretion the application of Canadian law to any entity, which could be people or corporations, at the discretion of the minister with no public oversight. Can anyone here, particularly Minister of Finance, explain?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
At least you're entertaining.
Remember that the budget bill is full of really great measures for this country, but one thing we can all acknowledge is that Canada has world-class innovators and entrepreneurs, those of whom will help us build the strongest economy in the G7. As part of that process, we're reducing red tape to broaden the use of something called regulatory sandboxes to help foster and spur research and development and innovation. We'll do this in a responsible way, in a forward-looking way, and in a temporary way. These will be authorizations that are limited, but these will help us keep up with the speed of innovation in this country. Thank you.
And that concludes the question period.
I'd like to inform the House that the volume of earpieces will now be reset.
Okay, we're waiting for the vote.
I am now prepared to rule on the point of order raised. Well, we're going to wait a few moments.
Okay. So we are waiting for the vote, which is supposed to happen right now. I'm just going to switch the feed. It didn't look like people were getting ready to vote, though.
Of earpieces will now be reset. Down to who wish to do so
leaving.
To leave.
Hello?
The volume who wish to do so to leave.
Government can't even figure out their own feed. Yeah, the legit feed just like paused.
I would ask colleagues who wish to do so to leave as quickly as possible.
Let's see what happens.
I am now prepared to rule on the point of order raised on December 4th, 2025.
I don't know if a vote's happening right now because part of the Conservative bench left and part of the Liberal bench left.
Oral questions. In her point of order, the member for Saint Jean argued that some recent answers from the government were not only off topic, but completely unrelated to the business of Parliament. She asked the chair to clarify whether, like questions, the answers given during question period should also pertain to the business of the House. The member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière raised a related point about the questions from the member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles, during a previous sitting that the chair had interrupted before he could finish asking them. I will address these 2 points in turn. Regarding the answers provided by the government, House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 4th edition, states in section 11.12, and I quote, "The Speaker ensures that replies adhere to the standards of order, decorum, and parliamentary language, but is not responsible for the quality or content of replies to questions." End of quote. It isn't, and it never has been, up to the chair to determine whether an answer is appropriate. Multiple rulings by my predecessors have underscored the chair's limited authority over the content of answers. In a decision delivered by one of them, the member for Regina Capel, on January 28, 2014, which appears on page 2204 of the debates, he said the following: "Successive speakers in our House have maintained our tradition of not intervening in respect of answers to questions, and I do not intend to change that." End quote. With respect to the slightly different concern raised by the member for Mégantic-L'Érable Lotbinière about questions, House of Commons Procedure and Practice, 4th edition, in section 11.7, states clearly that questions should be, and I quote, "within the administrative responsibility of the government or of the individual minister addressed." Unquote.
To play in assessing the admissibility of questions. My immediate predecessor made clear what the chair's expectations are when a member rose to ask a question. On December 10th, 2024, at page 28,755 of the debates, he stated, quote, "If members want to ensure their questions are in order and to get an answer from the government, they need to phrase them clearly and to quickly make a direct connection to the government's administrative responsibility." End of quote. This is advice that I also endorse without reservation. When such a connection is not made, members risk being interrupted by the chair. De manière générale, d'ici à ce que la Chambre modifie ses pratiques relatives à la...
More generally...
Okay, we're not listening to shit from a year ago. They are not voting right now. It will likely take place later on. The government always shifts things around. Sorry to get everyone's hopes up. They're not voting on it right now, but I can save you some time. Chances are it's absolutely going to get denied, but it would have been fun to watch anyways. Yeah, we're not watching this. I'm going to end the stream. We're not watching a document from December 10th, 2024. We're almost 2026. I'm sorry. I don't even care if it's an expose on the Liberals. It's a year ago. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Anyways, moving on. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Touch grass. Get some sunlight while the sun is still out. And I'll see you all tomorrow, same time. Bye-bye.